Hello, hey everyone. Thank you so much for joining another edition of Trailhead Live and another episode of Modern App Development on Salesforce. My name is Mohit Srivastava. I am a developer advocate here at Salesforce and I have been joined by Julian. Julian, would you like to introduce yourself?
Of course, Mohit. Thank you very much. For the people that don't know me, my name is Julian Duque. I'm a lead developer advocate here at Salesforce, working mainly with the Heroku team. I've been joining Mohit on this modern app development series, pretty much adding my knowledge around JavaScript, Node.js, and remember, we are using the eCars sample application that we deploy to the sample gallery that you can take a look at the Trailhead sample gallery apps. We will be talking over certain parts of that application we have been developed. So
Yeah.
thank you, Mo, for letting me introduce myself.
Yeah, and before we begin, there's a forward looking statement here. So please do not make any purchasing decisions on anything forward looking that we make in this presentation. So, with that, Julian, I just want to remind where we are in the series for those of you joining for the first time. So, today we are talking about scale with confidence on Salesforce platform. Specifically, we'll go into how to build microservices on Heroku using Node.js application. So, we also have one more session where we will again further deep dive into this with some other examples like Kafka and how to build progressive web applications and other exciting stuff. Now, you can catch up all of our episodes on our YouTube channel and also on the Trailhead Live. We covered from data model design to UI architecture. So, we had a lot of sessions. I think we have almost done 7 sessions now. So, if you have missed them, please do check our YouTube channel for that. And I'll also share the link in the chat here shortly. With that, Julian, I think we are good to kick off, and we straight away start with deep diving into this, eCars application. And one of the areas that I got interested in this eCars application was, Julian, I know that Chris and you built this eCars deploy Node.js script. Which seems to be so exciting to me as a Salesforce developer. I want to learn how you build that script. So could you walk us through, what is the script, how to use them, and also show us, the code behind that? I'm gonna switch the
Of
screen to you.
course, of course, Mohit. So let's go a couple of steps back,
Hmm.
and we are going to be focusing on the Trailhead apps eCards repository on GitHub. So make sure you can go to github.com/trailheadapps/eCars, and this is the full source code of the project. So this project consists, this is a monolith. So it consists of one Salesforce application, like a SFDX application that was generated using the Salesforce CLI. And it also includes of 4 Heroku applications. So I'm going to show you a little bit of the structure of the directory, so you have an idea of what we are going to be taking a look at today. So we have the main folder. It contains the Salesforce application. So you might identify here the Force app main default folder where all the metadata lives. But there is one folder called apps. Apps contain all of the different Heroku applications we also use for the eCars app. So today we are going to be focusing on the eCars services, which is microservices that we created for the Salesforce app. Since we need to deploy not only the Salesforce application to the Scratch org, we will need to also deploy the Heroku applications to the Heroku platform. So we provide here on the README 2 different methods of doing this deployment. So you can go to the table of contents and you are going to check both the automated deploy, which is what I'm going to be showing today, and the manual deploy. So we created a script like a Node.js program that you can execute, and it will make your life very easy to deploy this full application to both the Salesforce platform and the Heroku platform. If you want to do this at home, you can do it. Remember, you will need to have a DevHub account. You will need to have the SFDX CLI installed, the Heroku CLI, and some other tools. Make sure you go to the installation section. Take a look at the prerequisites. Go and follow the instructions to install everything that you need. But there is one very important step, and this is the SSH key configuration. So in order for us to deploy this application safely to Heroku, we need to add our SSH key. So it will deploy automatically without adding any issues. So we have the instructions how to add those keys to Heroku and how to configure depending of the operating system you are using. So make sure you are following this before trying to execute the script and deploying this application. If you try to deploy this application and you are facing any errors, remember we have the Trailblazer community group. You can go to the Trailblazer community group, ask the question there, or you can also maybe ask as an issue here on the repository. But if you find like any bug, any error, this place is going to be also the best place to file those. Now let's take a look at that automated deploy. So the automated deploy, it will give you also some prerequisites. So first, you will need to be authenticated against a dev hub. So we need a dev hub, and let's authenticate to that dev hub using the Salesforce CLI. You will need to also authenticate to the Heroku CLI, to the Heroku platform, and you will need to have access to this repository. So clone the repository, fetch it to your computer, and now then let's start. So I'm going to be moving to Visual Studio Code. I have the eCars project here, and we are going to be focusing on one specific script. So let's go to the scripts folder, and here on the scripts folder, we have the eCars deploy file. So before jumping into the code, let me start running this script so you have an idea how to run the script and how it looks like. I'm
Mhm.
not going to deploy the application because it takes a while. It takes like around 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So we are not going to be doing due to time constraints. But so you have an idea how simple it is to start deploying eCars. So I'm going to be going to that scripts folder. I'm going to execute eCars deploy using the Node binary. So this is how you execute that Node script with Node and the JavaScript file. I hit enter, and this will start asking me certain questions. So remember to read all of the documentation we are pretty much adding to this script because it will tell you all of the different applications we are going to deploy. We
Mhm.
check for the existence of Git, Node, the Salesforce CLI, and the Heroku CLI to make sure you have all of the prerequisites ready to deploy. And now we are going to start asking you for information. The first one is, okay, give me the name of the existing SFDX DevHub alias.
Mhm.
And it will try to auto guess, maybe it will check if you already have one it identify that I have the product submit already authenticated. So this is the one that I'm going to be using. So I just hit enter. Then give me the name of the scratch org, like the alias. So I'm going to say, okay, this is going to be called eCars. I hit on enter. Then it will ask you for the unique names for the four different Heroku applications. The first one is the progressive web application that we are going to be taking a look at that later, which is the consumer facing application where we are going to start configuring our car and it auto suggest a name for us. We are like auto generating these names using the same haiku model that the Heroku apps use when you do an Heroku create. So we are trying to simulate the same behavior. Just click on enter, or you can add your own specific name. The second is the MQTT application. MQTT is an IoT protocol, like a messaging protocol, very lightweight. We are using this protocol to receive messages from the different cars, like the cars are emitting data through the sensors and are sending the sensors to the cloud. So we are receiving that information using MQTT. So we need to have an MQTT broker on Heroku, and this is the code for that, or the application that is going to be deployed. Then it's the real-time Heroku application. This is the one that takes care of both the Apache Kafka setup, which is optional in the initial deploy. You don't need Apache Kafka for using the eCars application, but it's something that it's optional and you can use it for increase the performance and scalability of this application. But this application has the WebSocket server that we use to serve real-time data to the Salesforce application. So we are sending sensor information to the Salesforce application through WebSockets, and this is the real-time application. And the last one is the eCars services application. This one contains two different microservices. One is to generate a PDF, and the other one is to receive a web push notification. And we are going to do a deep dive of one of these microservices later. After you select the last item, if you click enter, it will start deploying the application.
Hmm.
I'm going to do a control C right now because I don't want to deploy. And if I deploy, I might break the deploy I already have because I choose the same aliases. So I'm going to cancel the installation with control C and show you how it looks like when you finish the deployment. Let me go to my terminal.
And Julian, just to reiterate, right? We are gonna deep dive into all of these services, but for this session, we'll be focusing only on that service that we have created for creating the PDF inside Salesforce. We'll take a look at the PWA app code and also the other services like the one that you have for MQTT and also for the Apache Kafka. So we'll take a look at that in the next session. But for this session, we'll keep it focused to specific to that PDF service.
Exactly. I already deployed, so you can see here, this is the output of the script, all of the different applications that it deployed to Heroku. So let me go down. You can see we deployed the real-time application. Then we are going to deploy the PWA one, and we are doing some automated stuff. Then we are completing the steps, deploying the fifth application, which is the services. All of the different automation is being done here. And at the end, it will give you some instructions. We
Mm-hmm.
are working on improving these, so you don't need to do any manual steps after. But this is what we have today. So make sure when you finish the deployment, follow these instructions. Like first, you will need to send an API token or security token. Then you need to set those security tokens both on the eCars services application and on the eCars PWA application in order to use JS Force to consume the Salesforce API. And you have the commands. Pretty much run the commands, replace the string with the token, and you are good. Then an optional step, you can activate the Pulsar theme of the application. So we have a custom theme on the Salesforce application. You might want to start the PWA application. So this is the command to start that application. And this is other commands. So you can open some other sections on the Salesforce application.
Yep.
At the end, if you want to save resources or clean up, it will give you the commands to delete
Mm-hmm.
both the Salesforce application deployed to the Scratch org and the 4 Heroku apps.
Got it.
So this is super. I think it is simple. I don't like to use the easy word because sometimes it is not as easy. It
Yeah.
requires some prerequisites and install something, but it's simple. I mean,
Yeah.
what
Yes.
we did is to try to avoid you follow a lot of different manual steps.
Yeah. So just to add to that, right, Julian? So we have deploy script, which is basically going to execute all those commands, and we'll dig into those deploy scripts. But even after you run these deploy scripts, there are certain things, like for example, security token that needs to be shared to the Heroku environment variables. So that configuration is again an extra step. You can think of it as a post deploy step. After running those script, you might want to do a couple more steps, like the one
Yeah,
that yeah.
those are the ones that we have here. This is why we wanted to have this pretty documented so you
Yeah.
can follow along and you don't miss any step.
Perfect.
Okay. Having things automated are good for, I mean, productivity things, but the manual step will teach you a lot how to
Yeah.
do things on Heroku and on Salesforce. We also have the manual deploy instructions, which are like also pretty detailed.
Yeah.
So all of these different commands we are executing here, we automated those commands on the eCars deploy script. So if
Yeah,
you want to learn how to deploy it manually, you have also the Heroku deploy buttons to deploy the applications, how to configure the Postgres database, how to set up everything. So you can follow both the manual steps or the automated steps.
got it.
Let's do a deep dive on the automated one, right?
Yes, I'm so excited to see that script that you have written, because one of the things that I saw is it's all written in Node, and I like that. And the other thing is it has Salesforce CLI commands. Also, it
Mhm.
has Heroku CLI commands. So you're using like one JavaScript file, and you're writing a lot of automation, like all the Linux commands that I saw. I also saw there that you wrote the Heroku CLI commands, and then the Salesforce CLI commands. So that's awesome that you're using Node.js to actually automate this. And I think this is a very, very good valid use case for all our developers here, because we want to do some automation with Salesforce APIs and with metadata APIs, etc. And I think this
Yep.
is a good example of how to write a Node script to do that. Now,
Yep.
Julian, I'm interested to see this. How you have sort of built this and what open source things are
Oh,
you using here.
okay. Perfect. So if you are used to developing on an Unix environment, or why not on a Windows environment, you know that you can write the scripts to automate stuff.
Mhm.
Pretty much on a script, you can add the commands and you can automate certain things. And there are like programming languages that can help you with that. For example, on a Unix environment, I'm talking about Linux and Mac OS, you
Mhm.
can use a bash script or a shell script to have like some logic and write the different commands you are going to be running. So we are like pretty much getting all of those commands you can do manually and adding those to a bash script. On Windows, you have the batch scripts, I
And
think it's the
yeah,
name,
yeah,
the
and PowerShell. Yeah,
.bat, and the PowerShell scripts,
yeah.
which also have like a different programming language. So if we are creating an automation, we will need to provide different set of scripts, like scripts for Unix environments like Linux and Mac, scripts for Windows, and the maintenance burden of having multiple automation scripts is going to be quite high. So if we need to change something in one, for example, the Windows steps change, we need to do the same on Linux, and we didn't want it to have that. So we are
Hmm.
relying on the power of Node.js and JavaScript, because Node.js is not only for writing web applications, you can also write CLI applications, desktop applications, and a bunch of other utilities with it. So we decided to use Node.js to write an automation script that will run in both the Windows and Unix platform.
Got it.
For that, we are using the shell.js package. So as
Hmm.
you can see on the scripts folder, we have a package JSON. Package JSON is where we keep all of the dependencies
Hmm.
for an application.
Got
So
it.
here you can see that we are using shell.js and some other modules that I'm going to be explaining later. But shell.js is the one that it's doing all the magic here.
Hmm.
So I'm going to show you how to take a look at npm module. So you can go to npmjs.com,
Hmm.
and here on the search box, you are going to write shell.js.
Yep.
Shell.js, open the homepage of that specific module, and you will find how to install it and the different documentation.
I'm looking at that number of weekly downloads. It's
Oh,
an
look at
hour.
that, like 6 million.
6 million downloads. So
So for
yeah. Seems like it's a powerful library, right, Julian? And
it is a powerful library.
okay. And one of the things I liked about shell.js is it's like, you can execute Unix-like commands, right, on using Node.js. Like, for example, I saw that in the code we were using sed, and I know that sed command is a lot more used in Unix, So yeah,
Mhm.
I'm interested to see how you're using some of these commands and how we are using some of the Heroku CLI commands and Salesforce CLI commands all together here.
Sure. So as you can read here from the documentation, shell.js is a portable implementation of Unix shell commands on top of the Node.js API. So you can write the same script and run on Windows,
Hmm.
Linux, and Mac. So this is pretty much what it's helping us to create this automation script. So let's go to the code. We can take a look at what we did. Let me close this so we have like a better visualization.
Yeah.
So remember that with Node.js, you can use both core
Hmm.
modules. Core modules are the one that are part of Node.js, and you can use also third-party modules, which are the ones that you fetch from npm, the package registry. So Shell.js is a third-party module, so we fetch that from npm, but we are also using child process. Child process is a core module, so this comes with Node.js, and it allows you to execute local commands, like
Hmm.
commands that you have already installed in your operating system. So with child process, specifically this function, the exec file sync, we are executing sfdx,
Hmm.
Heroku, and some other commands that we have locally, like for example, git, so we can have like the best experience. We are
Right.
also using other modules, for example, Chalk. This is a third-party one that is the one that give us the beautiful colors in the terminal.
Hmm.
So as in Chalk. So you can use colors with Chalk. We are using wrap and see to be able to wrap the text. So the text is going to fit on a terminal. We are using Enquire, which is another third-party module, to have that beautiful prompt. Remember that we have that prompt that asks us the Scratchwork alias,
Yeah.
the Heroku application name. So we have all of those things here. And we also wrote a local module called utils. You
Hmm.
are going to recognize that it is a local module because we are specifying a path instead of a normal name. Utils contain some commands like let's validate the application name, get the default Git dev hub that you have on your system, generate that unique name so we don't have any collisions, the check for the required commands, and check if you are logged into Heroku. We can go and take a look to these URLs. Let me go and click on the URLs. So you're going to see this is another Node.js script. So we are using the different modules like the Haikunator to generate those Haiku style names that we use in Heroku, the lookpad. We also use in Shell.js, and we have the different modules here to do the validation, validate that the application name is good,
Got
how
it.
to generate a unique name, how to get the default dev hub. So you can execute.
That is where I was going, So yeah, shell.exec, right? So so sh, which is your shell.js,
Mhm.
module or function, right? Or a
Yep.
class, I think it's a class, right? So and then you say execute, and then you easily say, execute the same Salesforce CLI commands that we are all familiar with, and we looked into in the first session. We walked into some of these commands, so we walked through.
Exactly. So see, you require Shell.js. This gives you this property or this function or object. I will say there is a JavaScript object, and this contains all of the different commands.
Got it.
So from here we can execute this external command sfdx
Hmm.
as silent, so we don't want the output, and then the output of these we don't want the output print out into the console, but the output of this command, we are parsing it as a JSON, and now we are getting the JSON and operating over that. So
Got
we
it.
don't have any scratch org, or let's go to all of the different ones, checking if it is a dev hub, if it has a default dev hub username, and we are going
Hmm.
to return that information to our script.
Awesome.
And the same for the other ones. Okay, let's check for the required command. So we are going to see if all of the commands exist.
Yeah.
How to check if you are logged into Heroku. The same. We are executing Heroku Who Am I, which is a CLI command
Command
that
for
the Heroku
Heroku.
CLI has. And
Yeah.
then we are checking if it works or not. So you are getting the idea of what we
Yeah.
are doing.
Yeah. And Julian, could you, because I know that, we're using like the require there, like the require statements to import the modules on the top,
Yeah,
right?
yes,
Tell
sir.
us a bit about, like, I've seen, like, so in some use cases we use imports, some use cases we use require. Like, when should we go for require, imports? Like, what is this, all these things?
Fantastic question. So when Node.js started, it implemented a a standard called CommonJS. So
CommonJS.
if you
Okay.
have been developing JavaScript applications for a while, you might remember that there still are, but there were like a lot of different module systems. So you have UMD, Universal Module Definition. You had CommonJS, which is this that we are taking a look today, the require. You have AMD, and right now, after ECMAScript 6, or the one of the newest implementations of JavaScript, you have the ECMAScript modules, which is the, the standard that we have today.
Got it.
Node.js just added support
Hmm.
for ECMAScript modules. They were in an experimental phase, but now they were approved.
Got it.
So CommonJS is like the most traditional way of dealing with modules on Node.js, but you can also use ECMAScript modules. The main difference is that here you are using the require
Got it.
function to get modules, and on ECMAScript you are using the import.
Yeah.
It has like a slightly different syntax and maybe a slightly different features, but both works. So
Got
what
it.
we are doing here, for example, with these utils, see
Hmm.
that we are exporting or requiring these functions
Hmm.
here on the utils
Yeah.
that we are exposing here. We have this keyword module dot exports. So
Yeah.
we are exporting the functions,
Hmm.
and then here we are requiring those functions. That's how CommonJS works.
Got it. Okay.
And I'm creating some blog posts and content to go and do a more deep dive on Node.js. So I'm
Got
pretty
it.
sure we are going to cover in these topics, and you are going to learn more how to write Node.js applications. But now let's go through the script like really quick.
Yeah.
For example, here we are using a process platform, which is a Node.js property that tells you if you are on a Windows environment or you are on a different environment. So
Right.
this is to define the command delimiter. So if it
Yeah.
is a Unix or if it is a Windows, it has like different strings, but there are like certain things that you can use for making it easier.
Got it.
And now let's start. We are defining some environment variables that we are going to be using later for other steps of the script. And now we start like setting up options. So
Got
see
it.
that we are executing a git to make sure which one is the root project, which one is the current branch,
Hmm.
and then we are starting to print out the information. So, hey, welcome to the eCars sample app, and we are writing this with a white background, with a green color, and this is bold. And here we
Got
are
it.
using chalk. So now you are seeing that we are using different modules to make sure that
Yes.
you are having like beautiful, beautiful output in your terminal. And then, okay, this is the setup steps. First, show the explanation, make sure you have all of the different commands,
Hmm.
print that we are checking for the commands, and now execute the different modules or functions we created. And
Yeah.
if everything is good, we are going to be printing on green, done,
Yeah.
everything is great, then start
Yeah.
our different steps. And here, while we have some different functions that we created in the same file.
Got it. Hmm.
So get the user input, ask for the scratch org alias, the application names,
Hmm.
then start the deployment process. And we have broke down each step on a
Hmm.
function. So
That's good.
the Salesforce organization setup is one function, the MQTT broker is one, the real time one, the PWA is another one, and the Heroku services is another one.
Got it.
And at the end, the documentation. So pretty much this is the script
Yeah.
that we are
And
using.
yeah, and hold on one question because I'm seeing this, as a JavaScript developer, this is sort of new for me, right? So I saw that for some functions you were using await, right? Like for example, get user input, you have await there. For rest of
Yep.
the functions, you're just calling the function. What's going on there? Like why await versus async, what it is, and if you could give us.
Beautiful, beautiful question, Mohit. So you have two ways of developing with Node.js. The
Hmm.
normal way is using asynchronous functions. Node.js is an asynchronous runtime.
Got
It
it.
uses one single thread, and it uses something called the event loop. So every asynchronous operation that you are going to be doing,
Mm-hmm.
especially IO operations like input and output, like reading files, writing to a file system,
Mm-hmm.
doing network operations, dealing with databases. Those are IO operations like input and output, and those are considered asynchronous operations.
Got it.
So after ECMAScript 6, there is a new standard to dealing with asynchronous operations, which is using async await. These rely on something called promises on the JavaScript land that allow us to execute operations on that event loop asynchronously. And after those operations run, they are going to return the value back to us without blocking the main thread,
Got
without
it.
blocking what we call the event loop.
Got it.
So when you see a function with the await word after the before the function, sorry, that
Mm-hmm.
means that the function it's asynchronous.
Yep.
What is an asynchronous function? A function that it is defined as asynchronous and that returns a promise. If you
Got
see
it.
there in the function signature, it returns a promise. So the operations that have been done on that function are asynchronous operations.
Got it.
These other functions doesn't have any weight here, so that means that those functions doesn't return a promise. Those are synchronous functions. And pretty much what we are doing here are executing operating system commands.
Got it.
This is why those are synchronous.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. So Julian, I know that now, I know this, I'm starting to look into this, right? So it's, I've started to get more understanding now about functions, etc. Can you just go through that sed command and what it is? I think at one place we use like sh.sed. So I'm interested in learning more about that command. Yeah,
Oh,
this one.
SVD. Nice.
Yes.
Okay, so let's go. This is on the Salesforce org setup.
Correct. Yeah.
This is the step when we are setting up the Scratch org.
Mm-hmm.
So we have this sed command. The sed command is a Linux command that allows you to do replacement of strings in a file.
Got
So
it.
we have some templates, and I'm going to be showing you those templates or the original templates. Those
Yeah.
live here on the metadata app.
Yeah.
Right now, those are replaced.
Yeah.
Let me do a git checkout so we have the original ones.
Yeah.
Let me do a git reset so we don't have any change. Okay, now
Yeah.
we don't have any change. So I can
Uh-huh.
show you what we are doing there.
Yeah.
So let me go to that file, which is force app
Yeah.
main.
Yeah.
Where are you? Oh no, I'm already there. CSP trusted sites,
Yes.
WebSocket CSP trusted.
So this is a
Okay.
metadata file. Salesforce developers are familiar with that. So you need CSP for some of the use case here, right? So you need the trusted configuration here, the security policy, right? Cross origin security policy, right? Or sorry, it's called content security policy, CSP. So you need the content security policy to be defined, and that's a security feature. Now this is a metadata. So you're saying that you are using that SCD command to sort of use this template and substitute the right URLs. Okay.
Exactly. So we have this template. As you can see, we are pointing to example.heroku.com as the WebSocket server, but that application doesn't exist.
Oh, this is
And
powerful. Yeah.
yeah, when we are deploying, we don't know that like pretty much we need to replace this to the final URL of the application we are going to be deploying.
Hmm.
So the Salesforce application have the proper URL. So remember in the first step, we are asking you for names.
Yeah.
Now that we have the names, we can do a replace. So we can go and change this value to the final value.
And then
This is why
deploy it.
we are using,
Okay. And
exactly.
then
This is why
deploy
we
this,
are
push
using
this. Okay.
that.
So this is interesting because you're saying that if let's say I have a configuration which differs between my sandbox and production, right? I
Mhm.
can script that in Node.js, and I can use this shell.js to sort of use this SCD command to modify that metadata before I push that metadata in Salesforce. Now that's so new to me, and it's also a powerful thing that I learned today just now that Salesforce metadata, we can have dynamic definitions of the metadata there, and then use this scripts to actually do a post deploy or a pre deploy or processing of these metadata files before it actually gets pushed to Salesforce.
Example, this can be used with any file like name credentials,
Okay,
changing some other variables depending of things that you are doing during the automation. So here we are updating the source. So we are changing the source code before pushing to the scratch org.
got it.
And here, as you can see, we are using regular expressions, which are very powerful. And I will
Yeah,
recommend you to learn regular expressions to replace something that ends with herokuapp.com with the variable we got at the beginning, the Heroku real-time app name
yeah.
on that specific file. And we are
All right.
doing the same for the live data.js. So if we open the live data.js, this is part of the Lightning Web Components. And from here, you can see that we also have the example.herokuapp.com,
Yeah,
but we need to have the final URL. So this is why we are using sed or sed to replace that. And we also have the named credential that Mo is going to explain more.
yeah.
With the name credential, when we have the Heroku URL, instead of having the example.herokuapp.com, we are going to replace it with the microservices URL.
Actually, okay, perfect. Yeah, that makes total sense now. Julian, I know that we are running out of the time to go to the
Yep.
actual, other part of the content, right? So I think we'll live up to our audience here to actually explore the script a bit further. And believe me, there's a lot of goodness in the script, actually. So you should take a look at the code. Our code is also open source, so take a look at it. See how different things are used. Like for example, the shell JS and the SED commands, etc. And
Mhm.
use it in your applications as well, wherever you want to process the metadata files before you want to deploy into Salesforce.
Awesome. So let's go ahead with the slides and then
All right,
continue with.
so I'm gonna shift back to my screen here, Julian. So let's
Sure.
see. Okay, so I think I'm on here. Okay, so we completed this activity, right? We completed the demo and a little bit about our architecture here. So you saw all of these like microservices. We have further sort of simplified with this diagram, and hopefully this is useful. But today we are going to be digging into the PDF service part of the application, right? So this one. So this is what I posted on the Twitter, and I got a lot of feedback around this. This is awesome. So this is the architecture. Essentially, we have an LWC component which basically invokes an Apex class, and the Apex class is responsible for invoking that Node.js service that will have Julian sort of running us for like how did we create this service, what are the components of that service. So Apex sort of invokes by making an outbound HTTP call, and then the Node service generates this PDF. We use JS first to log into our Salesforce environment. We query for the right lead records, and then we create this file record, which is the content version record, and the content document link objects, so that we can relate that file to the lead object. So we reach back into Salesforce, right? So this is one of the patterns, right? And there are so many patterns like this to invoke your microservices. So how about, Julian, we deep dive into the Node.js service part of the application and see how you build this, how you show us, how you build this feature, and how are you using Fastify, etc. Okay.
Perfect. So can you share my screen again?
Yes, there you go.
Let's do a quick demo.
Yeah,
Okay. Now we have the consumer web application, the progressive web application we created for eCars. When we are going to start configuring our car, so let's select that we want a long range car, the expensive one. I like it black, and let's see with the tan interior. This is this was created using Lightning Web Components open source, so you
got it.
might take a look at the source code. then go to next, and now I'm going to send my information to Salesforce so somebody contact me with this car information.
Mm-hmm.
So Julian Duque, my phone number, which is a fake phone number, my email,
Uh-huh.
and I will tell you, hey, contact me
Okay.
once this car is available. So this might take some time to send the information, but I already have something created just in case. So go
Okay.
ahead and get back to the Salesforce application. Let's say we created the leads. Okay,
Yep.
now this was submitted. Let's refresh. So I have the Julian lead created here on Salesforce. So
Got
you
it.
can see this is the beautiful Pulsar application created here. Cool. Okay, I have Julian Duque. I'm
Okay.
going to. I have my lead. Perfect. There is one microservice that we are not going to be doing a deep dive today, but we can send a notification to Julian
Yeah.
and say, "Hey, Julian, your car is ready, but I need to enable notifications here so you see."
Yeah.
This is also another Heroku microservice we are using.
Using, and also the notification that you're pushing is using progressive web app, or are you using
It
any other
is a
technology?
progressive web app. We are using progressive web app. Okay, it was a read timeout because the service was
Down.
cold. Now the service is warm. You can see that the notification arrived on the right. Your car is ready. Awesome. Thank you very much. Let's go to the car configurator.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to the concessionary. I'm going to the dealership and pick the car. This is the final car I want. Okay, let's say I don't have all the money. I want medium.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer red because
Okay.
red is much better, and black interiors.
I see.
Beautiful. Now I'm going to add that configuration to my lead,
Mm-hmm.
Julian, and I'm going to create a PDF. This PDF is to have like pretty much what I selected. I can show my family. This is the car I just bought and have like the record. So go to the lead record.
Got it.
Okay, and here on related, if I'm not wrong, we
That's
have the
correct.
attachments.
Yeah.
I have the car order. This is a PDF we just created.
Yeah.
So let's open that PDF.
There
And
you
we have
go.
a beautiful PDF document with the car I just selected, the red with black and with the standard range, the one
Yeah.
we picked up. But how we did this? So we send the configuration information to the Heroku microservice. Remember that the Mo show you the architecture, and Heroku is using like Node.js,
Mm-hmm.
using a framework called Fastify.
Yeah.
Fastify is a super fast and highly performant web framework. You can go to fastify.io to take a look at this web framework. You can write not only microservices, but full web application and APIs using Fastify and deploy them to Heroku. This supports both JavaScript and TypeScript. So for the microservices we are going to show today, we are using TypeScript, which is a typed version of JavaScript, something more enterprise and more robust, I must say. But you can use both JavaScript and TypeScript.
Yeah.
And we are also using
Yeah.
other libraries as Mo show. One of those, and is the one that's pretty much doing all the work, which
PDF
is
make.
PDF Make.
Got it.
PDF Make is a library that lives on NPM that allows you to create PDF documents programmatically. So you can
Mm-hmm.
go to PDF Make, take a look at the documentation, and you're going to learn how to create PDFs. So let's go back to the code. No, and there is another one that we are using, which is JS Force. So we call the microservice, we send the data, we create the PDF, and after the PDF is created, we are using JS Force to save the PDF back to the lead.
Got it.
And we are
So
using JS Force for that.
Yeah, yeah. So all of these libraries, again, I've linked them in the chat, and these libraries are open source. That's what I like most
Open
about it.
source.
They are open source, meaning the code is available on the GitHub for you to fork, enhance, or change it completely and adapt it. So that's the power of open source. And with Heroku, right, what I'm loving here is, Julian, is we can combine all of these libraries and sort of build a very powerful application.
Yeah, exactly. So remember, we have the Heroku applications on the apps folder. So let's go to the apps folder, go to the services folder, which is the one that has the microservices. And this is a full, let's go and take a look at the package JSON. This is a full Fastify application. So you can see here that we have Fastify, we have JS Force, we have PDF Make, and we are also using other libraries. For example, for the web push notification, we need access to the Postgres SQL database. We need to have the web push module to be able to manage the web push notifications. Everything is open source. It is available in npm, so you can write. I mean, the sky is the limit. Let's take a look at what Fastify is doing. So here in this folder, we have routes. Routes are going to be the URLs for our API. We have two different APIs here. One is PDF and the other one is web push. Let's focus on PDF. So go to the PDF folder, and here you can see that we have the different fonts we are using for the PDF, the different images, and now we have the TypeScript files. So we have different files. We structure this in a way. The index file, this is using TypeScript. We are using worker pools, which is a new concept in Node.js,
Mm-hmm.
because generating a PDF might be a intensive CPU operation.
Got it.
Let's say we have hundreds of people generating PDFs at the same time, and we don't want to uh, like adding a lot of load to the Heroku service. So we are using something called Piscina, which is a library to manage worker threads in Node.js, to be able to have a worker thread to generate the PDF and don't block the main thread of the application, like the event loop. We are specifying a post route. So we need to send the data as a post payload. And
Mm-hmm.
I think on the previous session, we show how to send this information from the Apex class, right? The
Yes.
PDF creation.
Yes, we did.
So this PDF generator, no, PDF create service,
Yeah.
remember this PDF create service call that endpoint
Yeah.
as a post method.
Yeah. Julian, we have a couple of questions here. One of the question was, how is JS Force getting connected to Salesforce org? Um,
Mhm.
so definitely we use username and password authentication for that.
And the token.
Yeah, and we recommend for your production purposes use JWT server to server flow, and we will also see how we can sort of give you more samples in the future. Safe harbor. Also, there is a question around: are we using Composite API for that lead push that you showed? So for that lead push, we use the REST API, and for this functionality, also we use the REST API. But there is nothing stopping you from using the Composite API. In fact, for the other examples, we use Composite API as well. Yeah,
Or the PWA,
yeah,
the eCars PWA. Let me go quickly so I can show you.
yeah,
For the eCars PWA on the server
yeah,
API,
yeah.
we are using the composite.
Graph Composite API. Okay.
Exactly. As you can see, we are using the composite graph API to create the lead.
Yeah, and
We
we
have the
will cover
function.
it. Yeah, and we will cover it actually next session, right? We have plans to cover that Composite API, what it is, when to use. I'll cover it in the next session, Julian.
Exactly. So going back, we have the main route that is going to, it's the one that is going to take care of the PDF creation. And then we have a class, the PDF generator.
Mm-hmm.
Here is a TypeScript class That's the one that it's using PDF make as a PDF printer class. It's using another local module we created, which is the Salesforce class, and some other utilities to be able to generate that PDF.
Got
So
it.
we received that endpoint. Sorry, we received that payload
Yeah.
with the car data, and now we are getting that data and we are creating the PDF. So we need the Salesforce connection. We create the Salesforce connection, and now we start getting the data. Let give me the name, and then we are start calling the create PDF key document to start creating what we wrote.
Got it.
And at the end, we have the save PDF to lead function.
Okay.
This lives on another class, which is the Salesforce
Yeah.
.ts,
Yeah. And
which
while you
has
open that,
all of the
yeah.
Salesforce
Yeah.
information to create this.
Yeah. And while you open that and showcase that, Julian, what I'm liking about this is, you wrote a class there, you wrote a method there, as a JavaScript developer, right? Like writing functions, passing functions as a parameter, that was something very new to me. And I'm not so, like, my brain is not so much used to it because I've written so much of Apex code that I love object-oriented programming. So if you like object-oriented programming, then TypeScript is definitely for you, because what you're doing here is actually, it's going to compile the JavaScript for you. So, and you don't have to worry about checking the types, etc. You can define as concrete types. Like, if you could show us one of those type definitions, if we have, Julian, here. I don't know if we have one, but we define the attributes
We
and
have some. We have some. For example, the PDF definition.
yeah, definition.ts.
This
There you go.
is this is one of the definitions we have
Yes. So if you look at
for a
this,
PDF.
yeah. So yeah, with the TypeScript definition, right, it becomes really easy for me to say, okay, define a specific data type, right? I'm very clear that it is Boolean, or it is, or it is a
Right.
text string, right? So I can define my data structures, and then I can write a class, I can write a method. So it sort of feels really native for me. And with async and await, it makes it more like, easier syntax, because then I can make an asynchronous method just async, and then just call it with await, right? Like the one that you're doing there, right? So that feels natural. So I always recommend, like, someone learning JavaScript to also look into TypeScript, specifically if they are going from Salesforce world, into the JavaScript development. It doesn't hurt to actually look TypeScript and learn how to, like, create a TypeScript project and how to sort of compile your TypeScript project. And you can use it, on Salesforce platform as well. Let's say you're building a Visual Force page and you're writing too many JavaScript, you can easily write TypeScripts and compile it. So TypeScript is really useful skill, I feel. And I saw the latest reports that it's sooner becoming one of the popular languages here. So
Exactly. So as you can see here, we have a function on this class to create the connection using JS Force. We assign the connection to the local class as a local property called connection, and the different options. For example, get name from lead ID. I pass the ID, then I do the so-called query pretty much using JS4 to get that information from the lead.
awesome.
And a save PDF to lead, we are receiving the PDF as a buffer.
Yeah.
And then we are saving it back as a part of a content version asset to your lead. So we
Got
have
it.
all of the different operations here. We have seen people on Twitter asking why we have this double dependency on Salesforce, why we don't have like a service that just return the file.
Yeah,
You can do it.
you
I
can do
mean,
it.
you
Yeah.
have the buffer. Instead of saving it to the lead, you can return the buffer and do whatever you want with that.
Yes.
We wanted to make it like this for making it easier, for simplify the purpose
Yeah.
of doing it. But you can re-architecture this as you
Yeah,
might
yeah,
find a
and
fit.
it's all separated here, so it's a matter of just moving these files into other files, and basically taking out the Salesforce dependency out. So Yeah, so that's the power of microservices, right? I mean, I agree with some of those comments there that a service should be dumb as possible, right? It shouldn't have
Exactly.
any
Totally.
dependencies. So yeah, that's a good pattern, and you can always refactor this code to do that sort of an architecture here.
So
Um,
one good thing
yeah,
for people that are getting into the repository, we are using something called the Code Tours
code tools.
on Visual Studio Code, and here you can go and click like pretty much play, and it will show you the different files we have for eCars and some steps. So if you can see, we have the tour of the application. Let me see if I can move this. I mean, I have a lot of zoom.
Yeah, you have
But
a lot
you
of
have all of the different steps to take a look at how this is working. So
yeah.
let me stop the
It's
tour here. And we have an step, which is the PDF generation. And in the PDF generation, we are giving you the tool, how we are calling this from Apex,
yeah.
and all of the different steps we are following here. So this is also explained in the same code. Okay,
Yep. Okay,
awesome.
awesome. So, Julian, yeah, I think we're running out of the time here, right? So I'll take the control and run through some of the slides real quick here. And again, feel free to ask the question. Join the chatter group. I've already posted links to that in the chatter here. So let's complete some of the slide work that we had. So again, those of you asking name credential, right? It takes, the reason why we use name credential on Salesforce, it takes the burden out from you for coding authentication layer. So we do that automatically for you if you have an authentication service. There are different types of authentication service that you can configure there. And let's say you have an OAuth, you know that there is some logic involved to build the access token and the refresh tokens and all of the stuff, right? So with name credential, that problem is solved. And this is, again, I want to leave this as an activity because we couldn't get to it, is go look at our LWC car configurator and check it out, like how we have built the front end for this car configurator that Julian showed us. And also check it out, the PDF create service class. I think we walked through it in the last session. And check it out how we have built all of these. And I just want to mention this, Julian, is Salesforce has APIs for everything, right? So if you're coming new to Salesforce, just remember that Salesforce has APIs for everything. These are the bunch of APIs. They keep expanding, and you can easily use something in open source like JS Force, or you can use anything like Axios or any other npm module to connect to them. But JS Force actually bakes in a lot of the authentication factors for you, so you don't have to code. So that's abstracted already for you. So use that. And then finally, we have these helpful references for you. So make sure to check it out. And I'm going to post this link to this. I also have some more assets actually, Julian, like, from the previous session to still post on that community. So I'm going to take some time today to actually make sure that we post, those solution keys for the previous sessions. And yeah, explore our sample app gallery, because you saw the code that we have a lot more code, so anything there can be reused for your requirements. So just go through the code, help us to understand how you feel about it, give us feedback, raise issues if you find them on the code base, and help us make these sessions better. So if you have any feedback about these sessions, do reach out to us on that chatter community or to the Twitter. So this is the link I've already shared in the chat. And finally, I want to take some time and thank you, for taking time to, go through our sessions. And we have some amazing content again coming in the next sessions. So with that, Julian, over to you.
Sure. Thank you very much for joining. Remember to join the Trailblazer community group, and see you on the next one.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Thank you.